Are declining levels of religiosity responsible for many of the problems that we're having in the country today? Let's talk about it. I'm Marco Arroyo. Welcome back to In Between Sundays. I am glad you're here today. Before we get into the video, if you would consider liking the video, subscribing to the channel, and leaving a comment. Let me know what you think about what Dr. Phil is about to say here. Do you agree with him or not? Also, please consider supporting the Patreon. It's the best way you can support this channel. You get some perks with that for as little as $5. You get every single video that I do extended. You get to see more of what I'm saying about this, not as edited and chopped up as you find sometimes here on YouTube. Also, you get some other perks with that you will also love. And again, you get to support the channel here, which I would greatly appreciate. So Dr. Phil went on the David Pakman show. David Pakman asks him an important question, and Dr. Phil gives an amazing answer about the declining levels of religiosity in this country and the impacts that it is having on the country.
A couple other things that I wanted to ask you about. When it comes to what you see happening in the political space right now, approaching it from a cultural perspective, as you say that you do you agree that a decline in religiosity is a problem in the United States, or is that not a concern to you?
It is a concern to me. I think we've seen church membership drop below the 50% mark for the first time in our country's history. And I think that that's a problem for a variety of reasons. And one of them being that that's one of the times that families tend to spend quality time together. It's time that they put their phones down. It's time that they usually got together and would go do something as a unit and focus on values that were constructive to the family. There was often meditation time involved. There was often discussions about what was discussed in church that day. They often had Sunday dinner together afterwards and spent quality time like they did no other time during the day. And I think it also is a product of our lessened birth rate, which has dropped because a lot of people join church when they have children because they want their child to be baptized or christened or whatever. And the fact that we've seen our birth rate drop to around 1.6 from 2.1, which is necessary to sustain our infrastructure right now, is a problem. And it seems that that's one of the main reasons that church membership has dropped off. There's fewer kids to go get baptized, christened, or whatever, so people have less reason to go to church, and that's a byproduct of the lesser birth rate.
It's amazing that he points out that the value of church for so many families, even if you just take away the spirituality of it, on a logistical level, it is harder for knucklehead teenage boys or girls, for that matter, whatever, to go off and to get into some kind of trouble that's going to hurt them, hurt society, hurt other people, ruin lives, or just hurt lives in some ways. Yeah. When I think of myself growing up, my family, we spent a lot of family time together. I wasn't necessarily raised in like a Christian home. I didn't become a Christian until I was in almost my senior year of high school. Even putting the church aside, which I didn't go to all the time with my parents, just logistically, it was so hard for me to do things that I wanted to do that were bad because of how much time I spent with my family. And there is an alarming trend of families spending less time together in the world today. And I know it might seem like one of those things like, well, every family's going to do what they want to do. They're going to do what they got to do, whatever. And yes, I understand that. But at the same time, it's just so important to think about it. If you just break it down all the way to the very bare minimum, the logistical level, the more time a family spends together, the less bad thing teenagers are going to get to do. And that's a good thing. And so even if you take away all the other benefits of family time and you just leave it to that, it's already better if families spend more time together in church on Sunday. Already so much more, so much better for society and for teenagers and for the world in general if families spend more time together.
What do you make of the correlation anyway that as church attendance has declined, which you rightly point out, the rate of violent crime and murder in the United States has also been declining. Do you think there's anything because a lot of times the claim is made that as you remove God, whether it's from school or whatever, bad things happen, crime rates go up, etc. But we continue to see violent crime rates decline in the United States, correlating with decreased church attendance. What do you make of that?
So he's trying to do a little gotcha. He asked Dr. Phil that first question, and now he's trying to do a little gotcha on the second question here, saying, well, violent crime is actually going down, Dr. Phil, as religion declines. So it's not like as religion declines, things get worse. As religion declines, violent crime, the rate is going down. And look at Dr. Phil's masterful answer here.
Well, I think that that is a correlation, and I think some crime is declining in some areas and it's going up in others. But I think the idea is that if we will work to consecrate crime, put some measure of consequence that goes with the crimes that are happening, and give these people some result for what they do, and give them some opportunity to turn their life around, learn how to do things differently than what they're doing, then we'll see it continue to decline in the areas where we've got good trends, and turn it around in areas where we don't. But what I think is most important, particularly among our young people, is that we make sure that our parents are involved in our kids' lives so they don't get started in even misdemeanor crime right now.
That's
shoplifting. Shoplifting is up, and these are misdemeanors, a lot of which don't get prosecuted. And you wonder, a lot of this is happening with young kids, and I fear they're getting exploited by gangs, and you wonder, where are their parents? Mm-hmm. If they are vulnerable to gangs using them to go do shoplifting, which annually is over $100 billion a year in terms of overall loss and shrinkage from corporations, then somebody's doing that, and a lot of it is organized crime, and they're exploiting young people to do it because they know there's not a lot of consequence for it.
Okay, so real quick, you notice this. What was David Pakman's argument, essentially? His argument is, his question was, well, Dr. Phil, there's a decline in religiosity, and there's also a decline in violent crime. So, I mean, that narrative of if things will get worse, if we lose religion, things will get worse in this country. I mean, what do you think about that? That might hurt that narrative, don't you think? It's almost as if he doesn't know, but he does know that correlation does not equal causation. It's almost, again, he's not making the point, but he's really close to making the point without making the point, so that he doesn't have to be guilty of making the point, which is a dumb point. The idea that with less religion, less people trying to follow God, there is less crime, so therefore religion was the problem? What? What are we talking about here? Religion was again, if there is more religion and violent crime increases, are we going to blame that on religion? Or is it possible that in this great big world, there might be some other factor that is leading to both the decline or the increase of violent crime? Right? Again, that's one metric. And as Dr. Phil said, well, in some areas it's getting worse, and in some areas it's getting better. That rate is a very big, broad, general rate. Right? It doesn't account for all these different specific areas. And so it's a really silly kind of a point to make. Does he really think that if more people started trying to follow Jesus and to live honest, meaningful, fulfilled lives where they do what the Bible says, that they're going to start committing violent crime? What are they talking about? It's such a ridiculous question to ask. And Dr. Phil is essentially saying, okay, so that's great. The rate is going down. You know what would be even better? And to help that rate to go even lower? If more families were involved with one another and more kids spent time with their parents and did things like go to church. That would help it go even lower. How could you ever associate following Jesus with more crime? How could you associate that at all?
And you got to wonder, where are their parents? Do they know what they're doing? Are they talking to them about this? Are they discussing it with them so that they don't get caught up in that? And that's not a violent crime most of the time. but it's still a crime, and it speaks to the values that they're holding or not holding.
I don't know what Dr. Phil's religion is. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what his religion is, and I don't really know what his politics are. Again, he said he doesn't really have a lot of political prescriptions for these problems. He's just pointing out societal issues and how culturally, societally, we can overcome them, but not really like a policy or law level. He doesn't really get into that field, into that area. But what do you think about what he said? Is the decline in religiosity making the world worse? Is it making it more difficult, as he said? Or do you think that that's just a misnomer? I'm really curious to hear your thoughts. I know for myself, I would have done a lot worse things if I didn't spend so much time with my parents or with my family. But again, if you disagree with that, let me know what you think. God bless you. Again, like, subscribe, consider supporting the channel on Patreon. I'll talk to you soon. Take care. Goodbye.